Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into something that I think a lot of you are going to find really useful. We're going to be
Good.
talking about anxiety, specifically how CBT can help you manage it. And, to guide us through this, we have this awesome blog post. It's called My Anxiety and Cognitive Behavioral Therapy from the Multicultural Counseling Service website.
This is a great blog post. Yeah.
It is, so let's just jump right in.
Okay, great.
So, what really jumped out at me was how this blog emphasizes psychoeducation.
Yeah.
It's like before you even start tackling anxiety, you need to, wrap your head around it.
Right. You have to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really about understanding what's happening in your mind and body when you experience anxiety.
Yeah. And the blog does a really good job of like connecting the dots between muscle tension and breathing and stress and anxiety.
Right.
I've definitely noticed that when I'm stressed, I tend to take these like short, shallow breaths.
It's all connected. Absolutely. And, that kind of leads into this whole idea of avoidance, right?
Yeah.
It's tempting to just avoid situations that make you anxious.
Yeah.
But the blog points out that by doing that, you're actually kind of robbing yourself of the chance to learn how to cope.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like you're hiding from the bully, but eventually you're going to have to face them.
Yeah, you got to face your fears.
Right, exactly.
It's like the blog says, managing anxiety is kind of like exercise.
Oh, yeah.
There's no quick fix.
Right.
You need to put in the work consistently.
Okay, so that brings us to CBT.
Yeah.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right, CBT.
So CBT, in a nutshell, it's a type of talk therapy.
Yeah.
And the blog describes it as a way to change those unhelpful thought patterns and behaviors that can contribute to anxiety.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay, so how does it actually work?
Well,
The blog mentions two key components for tackling social anxiety, cognitive therapy and exposure therapy.
right.
Can you sort of unpack those a bit?
Yeah, sure. So with cognitive therapy, think of yourself as a detective. You're examining the evidence.
Okay.
But in this case, the evidence is your thoughts.
Okay.
So you're looking for these negative thought patterns that are contributing to your anxiety. And then you start challenging them.
So you don't just accept them.
Exactly.
You question them.
You question them. You say, like, is this thought really true?
Oh, okay.
What's the evidence for this?
So, those automatic negative thoughts that we all have.
Yeah.
You're saying they might not be accurate.
Right. And that's what cognitive therapy helps you realize.
Okay, got it. What about exposure therapy?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, that one sounds kind of intimidating to me.
I can see why you'd say that, but it's actually a very structured and gradual process. It involves confronting the things that you fear, but in a safe and controlled environment and with the guidance of a therapist.
Oh, okay.
So it's really all about building your confidence over time.
So it's not like, throwing yourself in the deep end.
Right, exactly.
It's more like dipping your toes in the water.
Yeah, more like that. You start small and gradually work your way up.
Gotcha.
Mm.
Now, the blog also mentioned that CBT can be done one-on-one or in groups, and it often involves what they call homework.
Yeah. So homework is basically taking what you learn in therapy and applying it in your everyday life.
Okay.
It's about practicing those new skills and thought patterns.
So it's not like a 1-hour session and you're cured.
Right. It's an ongoing process.
Right. It makes sense.
Yeah. Takes effort.
So this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The blog goes on to explain how CBT helps you pinpoint and address the root causes of your anxiety.
Yeah.
It's about breaking those unhelpful reactions that just keep that cycle of anxiety going.
Exactly. It's about interrupting that cycle.
I love this quote from the blog. Just keep trying as frequently as possible to rewire the mind.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It really emphasizes that change takes time,
It does.
but it is possible.
Absolutely.
This whole idea of rewiring the mind, it's fascinating.
Right.
Tell me more about how that works in CBT.
Okay, so rewiring the mind. What does that actually, look like in practice? What are some of the techniques they use in CBT to rewire thought patterns?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the blog post doesn't, it doesn't really get into specifics about like the exact techniques, but it does say that CBT has become incredibly popular and effective, especially since the mid-1990s.
So it's really taken off.
Yeah, it's kind of become like the go-to therapy for anxiety.
Wow, that's really interesting. And the blog post also mentioned that, like, some studies show that CBT can be as effective as medication for certain anxiety disorders.
Yeah, and it often has longer-lasting effects.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That really speaks to the power of it. But, therapy can be expensive
Right.
and not always accessible to everyone. So, what about people who might not have access to traditional therapy?
Right. That's a really good point. And thankfully, the blog actually addresses that. Oh, good.
Yeah, they talk about the growing availability of online resources for practicing CBT techniques.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is amazing because it means that even if you can't afford traditional therapy,
Right.
or, if you live in an area where it's not readily available, you can still learn about it and benefit from these techniques.
Wow. So it's like CBT for everyone.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've got a good understanding now of how anxiety works, how CBT can help, and even how accessible it is.
Yeah.
But what does this all mean for, you, the listener? What's the big takeaway here?
I think the biggest takeaway is that CBT puts you in the driver's seat. You know,
Mhm.
it empowers you to understand and manage your anxiety by changing those thought patterns and behaviors that are holding you back. And it's not about like, erasing anxiety altogether. It's about learning to navigate it more effectively.
I love it. Yeah. It's about, like, taking control back from the anxiety
Exactly.
instead of letting it control you. It's about, like, learning to ride the waves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
So the blog post ends with this really thought-provoking question.
Okay.
It asks, how could shifting your perspective on anxiety from obstacle to opportunity influence your journey with CBT?
Yeah.
And, that's pretty deep, right?
It is.
Like, what if instead of seeing anxiety as this thing to fear and avoid, we saw it as a signal,
Mm.
a chance for growth?
Right.
Maybe anxiety is trying to tell us something, like maybe something needs to change or that it's, time to develop new coping skills.
It's like a call to action.
It's like, it's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Reframing anxiety as an opportunity.
It's a whole new way of looking at things.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how, this shift in perspective could make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And the blog also teases this other approach called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, for dealing with anxiety.
Oh, interesting.
It's like they're leaving us wanting more.
I know, right?
I'm really intrigued by this ACT thing now. It sounds like a whole other way of, approaching anxiety.
Right.
Maybe we'll have to do a deep dive on that one sometime.
I love that.
But for now, I think we've covered a lot of ground on CBT.
We have, yeah. We've talked about how it can help you understand your anxiety, challenge those negative thought patterns, and, gradually face your fears in a safe and controlled way.
Mm.
But, it's important to remember that this is really just the beginning.
Yeah, you're right. We've given you the tools and the information. Now it's up to you to kind of take that next step. So what would you say are, the most important things for our listener to keep in mind as they embark on this journey?
Well, I think the most important thing is just remembering that, you're not alone in this.
Exactly.
Anxiety is like a common human experience.
Mm.
And there are so many people out there who, understand what you're going through. Absolutely. And it's so easy to feel isolated, when you're struggling with anxiety. But it's so important to remember that you're not alone. And CBT can be a really powerful tool for reclaiming your power and taking control.
Taking control.
Your anxiety.
Like you said, getting in the driver's seat of your mental health journey.
Exactly.
And it is a journey.
It is, yeah.
Not a destination, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be ups and downs along the way.
Of course.
But the important thing is just, keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward, yeah. And remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Right.
I mean, there are therapists, online resources, support groups, so many resources available to help you.
So many resources. That's true.
And as you start exploring CBT and implementing those techniques, just remember to be patient with yourself.
Yes. Self-compassion. It's
Yeah.
key.
Right.
It's so easy to be hard on ourselves when we're struggling, but it's so important to just treat yourself with the same kindness that you would offer a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Treat yourself like you would treat your best friend. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into CBT, what's that one final takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
Ooh, good question.
Well, I think, just remember, you have the power to create positive change in your life. CBT provides that framework for understanding and managing anxiety.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately up to you to,
Yeah.
take those tools and use them to build a brighter, less anxious future for yourself.
That's beautifully said. So, to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring CBT and all the amazing resources out there.
Yes.
Remember, you are not alone, and there is hope. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into CBT and anxiety.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
We hope you found it insightful and empowering. Until next time, take care.